You ever wonder why people are the way that they are? You ever wonder why people think the way that they think? Well, here's the answer to your questions. This is the Sit Down.
Man, it's been a long time, man. Welcome back, everyone. We are here. Man, it has been a long time. I ain't done one of these sit-down episodes in so long. Trey been trying to get me back in front of this camera for a long time, so here we go. And today is pretty cool, man, because I got one of my long-time friends, good friend. Yeah. We met a few years ago at work, and we've been working together ever since. And you're going to see him all over the place doing his public speaking and school appearances and things like that. So, what's up, man? What's going on there? Go ahead and introduce yourself, and let's talk about what you're into, brother.
What up, D? Thank you. I appreciate you having me on the show. My name, as D said, is Carlos J. Malave. My whole logo is CJ Motivation, CJM, Conscious Jovial Motivation. And I just founded my new business, Translating Success LLC, which is a consulting and speaking business that's based off of restorative practices. And I built a curriculum and did work within the KIPP Houston system over the last 2 years. I built a curriculum and I work with staff and students to build something to get to the root cause of the issues strategically with building up the program from scratch and doing lessons that will be impactful to help train the students to be able to do the work of circle leading, restorative practices, conflict resolution, radical candor, that develops the restorative practices within the campus from within, and then it'll grow. So that's what I've been doing. I started my new business where I'm doing programming and speaking across the country to implement the restorative power program is what I'm calling it within schools.
Cool. So, how long have you been working in the education and with kids and like that?
So I've been in education for about 8 years.
Okay.
I taught all different subjects. Fourth grade was where I first started in public school in New York. I'm originally from New York, if you don't hear the accent. So I say my K's a little harder and differently. So I started in New York. I taught fourth grade was the first grade I taught, and then I got into physical education, and then I taught seminar health for a couple years, and my last year in education was at KIPP Houston High School, where I was the restorative justice coordinator, where I developed the program and curriculum and the class, the Restorative Justice Council, where I got the idea of building my own program and trying to push it into more areas around the country to draw more impact.
Cool. So, like I said, man, it's cool to see like how we was talking about it way back when, and seeing it actually come to life. Like you going from, I think this is what I want to do, to being full-time on business. Absolutely. You know, man. So big ups to that, man. Congratulations on the jumping off the porch and fully committing to it, man. And like I said, man, even from the beginning till now, you know, whatever I could do to support, I'm with you. But man, talk about what got you involved in motivational speaking. Like, why did you want to, and what keeps you going now?
That's a big question, but a good one. Where do I start? So, I didn't know it was a profession that you can do and make a living from it. So how I got into it, I'm a former college athlete. I played college basketball. And when I was at college, I hated the idea or the stigma of the jock, where just playing sports and I wasn't smart enough, so I couldn't be in certain circles. And I went to SUNY Cortland, upstate New York, where I transferred from Concordia College, which was a smaller college in New York. I transferred because I wanted the bigger experience, the college experience, being around people that were different than me. So while I was there, it just hit me. I didn't want to have that stigma on me, and I wanted to break barriers. It was a predominantly white school, but there was a lot of stuff going on that I wanted to educate myself outside of the classroom, right? So I pushed myself. I ended up not playing my second year at Cortland, decision that I made last minute. I took a risk, and what I did was get super involved on campus. I became an RA, resident assistant on campus. I became Caribbean Student Association vice president, member of a club on campus called Move, Men of Value and Excellence, and BSU and the Multicultural Life office. And then I became the first Multicultural Life office intern going into my senior year, where I developed programming like the leadership retreat, and then they put me down as the a student keynote speaker for the first annual diversity conference, and then I did a couple things and started traveling. So that's where it started, right? Then after I graduated college, I got a job back in New York City, and I started working. I kept on getting called back to my college to speak and doing these big events, this Kente ceremony where I actually spoke. And to go back in college, I spoke at my college graduation Kente ceremony. So that was really big. That's where it all hit. I was like, oh, I prepared, but it just, you get those jitters that I guess it was that first big time that, beginner's luck type vibe. I had the butterflies, but once I started, it was like it reminded me of when I played ball, right? You're so nervous, you're prepping so long for it, and then you get up there, palms sweaty, and knees weak, arms are heavy. So yeah. So I had that feeling, and I used to have that feeling when I played ball. And I remember I just went up there and it just took the first sentence, and my parents were in the crowd, and it was jam packed, and it just flowed, and people were laughing, people were crying, people were like, I got a standing ovation afterwards. So that's where it clicked, like I could do this, right? So I graduated college after that. I got a job, as I said, and then I kept on getting called back to do these big events, not knowing it was a profession. Then I started doing research, and I found the Eric Thomases of the world. He actually inspired. He was the first to inspire me. Want It As Bad As You Want to Breathe was the video that jump started everything for me,
man,
as he did for many people.
I listen to him working out, man. Shout out to Eric Thomas,
yeah,
man.
Eric Thomas is the beast. He's the one. I saw that video and I played it for my students. I watched it consistently, and then I did a little more research, found the Tony Robbins of the world, the Les Browns of the world, and then and then I seen how much I saw it as a business. Like they living off of it, doing these engagements and building programming. I didn't know how I was going to come up with a program, but I just knew I could speak. I liked it. I liked the feeling of it, and I want to impact people that way. So I did my research, and I was bold with it. I was like, I sent emails to like for me, I don't care. I put myself out there. Like when I quit the ball team and I put myself in all these other things, it was bold. Like I was just shaking people's hands, sitting at tables that I normally wouldn't sit at, just introducing myself to random people. So I did the same thing in this essence. In the essence of trying to get what I wanted was to figure out how I could get connected to the world. So I sent emails to all the top dogs. Nobody answered me. Like I sent everybody, even celebrities, Ellen, Steve Harvey, everybody, and then nobody hit me up. So I started just doing YouTube videos. My boy was an editor, so I started doing YouTube videos, and I started creating my own stuff. And then eventually a person hit me up, Ariel Moutier. Shout out to him. He's a former 30 under 30 entrepreneur, one of the top speakers, spoke at the White House when Barack Obama was there. And he created this program called the True Speaking Success Program, where he kind of, you invest in the program, and he teaches you all the little things that you don't know of the business to kind of grow your thing. And at first I was like, I don't need that, man. Like he saw what I was doing on my own. He saw promise in me, and I was like, I don't need that. So I gave it. Now, I mean, I can make money on my own. So I did my thing for a year, and I was getting engagements here and there. And then, I felt like I was missing something still. So, and then I invested in the program. And it changed my life. Like I wrote my book after that. I learned the real details of the business, like little things you write in emails that could get it deleted or like read. Like I didn't know any of this. I was just winging it. And once I learned the techniques of the business and the behind the scenes, how to do it properly, it changed everything. And then I started making some real money from it and getting noticed. So over the last 5 years, I kind of was building my brand. That's where CJM came from. Honestly, I'm from New York, so I always saw the NY Yankee logo,
Mm.
right? The letters on top of each other. So I was like, yo, let me just put my name, CJM, Carlos J. Malave, and then I came up with three acronyms for my name with conscious, jovial, and motivated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just off the whim, and I did it on Word. It looked dope. I was like, yo, I could put it on a T-shirt. So, and I remember showing you, and I kind of branded it and made it my trademark. So, and I was just doing little things over the years, doing that, got the website. Then I started getting experience doing a lot of engagements. And then recently, when I was at Kip Houston High School, everything came full circle because the way I got to Kip Houston High School was I was speaking at an event last minute, and I don't know if you remember Jaffe, right?
Mm-hmm.
He worked at Yes Prep. Me and DeAndre worked at Yes Prep, and there was a guy that was working as a dean. Was he a dean at that time?
Me and him worked together in the Praxium.
Praxium.
He
But what
was
was his title?
student support.
Student support, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, he was part of
student
this.
support coordinator or student
Yeah,
support
yeah, yeah.
something.
He did a lot of work
Yeah.
with the
Oh
behavioral
yeah.
issues. And he was a part of a program that did this huge conference called the Restorative Conference. I didn't even know what restorative practices were or restorative justice was. So I did a little research on it. I was like, oh, that kind of connects to what I talk about. My thing was, and I wrote my book called Translating Success, which so I wrote my book on translating success, and it kind of connected to the restorative practices and restorative justice, getting to the root cause of your issues, and stuff like that. So that intrigued me. So I spoke at the thing last minute.
Mm-hmm.
There was these big speakers there, and there was a lot of. I was last minute. I got a room, and I swear God works in mysterious ways because I was in there and I was speaking, and I did my thing, and apparently KIP administrators and KIP students were in the in that room that I spoke, um, and they had ran after that was on a Saturday. They ran to the principal the very next Monday and convinced him, he's this, you got to bring him in, So he gave me a call, the principal of Kip Houston High School, Mohammed Maroof, right? And we connected. He heard about me and he looked me up, and then he liked what the kids were telling him and administrators were telling him, so he tried to bring me in. At first, he tried to bring me in as a teacher. That didn't work out, and I stayed at Yes Prep. And then I kept doing my thing, and then eventually I worked with him as a partner where I came in at the speaking engagement. He implemented my book, Translating Success, into his curriculum for a seminar class, freshman
Nice.
seminar. So he implemented it, and then the next year, I was looking to leave Yes Prep, and he created a position for me. So God works in mysterious ways. He created the position of restorative justice coordinator, where I was on campus. I would work with staff and students to build practices and build relationships and get to the root cause of situations, and kind of like the middleman. I had nothing to do with discipline. And then the fortunate thing, I had to teach one course called the Restorative Justice Council, where it was a leadership class for juniors and seniors. And within that class, I developed curriculum. I worked with the kids, and I taught them radical candor, which is leadership with compassion, right? I taught them conflict resolution. I called them circle leading skills, and we talked about everything. That kind of gave them training, and then we went into the classrooms. We pushed into classrooms, started making change within the school, and then we started going to high schools and middle schools and elementaries in the neighborhood. And then that's when ABC News got a hold of us, and they heard about us and made a feature on us. So that was going well, and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be, and I like where it's going. And then on January 10th, my father commits suicide, and I was very close to my father, and it's obviously the wounds are still open. This happened 6 months ago. I was very close to my father, and I knew he was going through a lot of trauma, but basically my father did everything he had to do as a man, came from the rags to riches story, from Puerto Rico to New York, and he worked his butt off working construction, but there was a lot of trauma that he had as a child that he never really dived into. and got to the root cause, and he just added responsibility on top of responsibility on top of responsibility, which we all do. And as a man, we tend to put it on our shoulders like we can't cry. We just have to deal with it, just keep moving. So he got to a place where I like to call his cup got overflowed. And he couldn't deal with it no more. So, and we used to talk a lot, and there was several instances before where he had those thoughts and we talked through it. So, and I remember he had called me and I was working with some kids and I didn't pick up. And the next day he had done it. So that's something, you know, that I'm living with now. And since then, I've been, it's been a very trying time. I've been going to therapy and then trying to work on myself and find myself, and kind of using the work. So this restorative justice thing, these restorative practices that I've been preaching for the last 2 years kind of became something that saved my life. And I was in the class, and what I talk about with my kids is this power and vulnerability, and me being the example. Like, I had a real extreme situation happen to me, and I had to like process and figure out myself and my stuff. So like I used the work to like really dive in with my kids and with the work, and really give my all to it. So I see the purpose in it on a whole nother level. It's not just something that, um, I'm I'm doing because, I learned about it or whatever. I actually learned about it, and then I had to really use it to save myself. So when I do the work, it's coming from a whole nother level of passion and commitment, because I truly feel like the work that I've done with these kids at Kip Houston High School and within the communities of Houston, could have saved my father's life. Learning the skills to articulate yourself when you have certain issues, knowing how to address trauma that you never dealt with before, having certain particular conversations with people that are difficult to have conversations with, but finding a medium to be able to do that. These are what the restorative practices that had me help me do, um, and me really walking the walk, and being about the work, not only on campus and around my students, but with my wife, with my daughter, uh, with people in my community, when I leave work. So it just became a way of life, and it still is. It's still working. Like, and I'm telling you, the only reason that I'm able to talk right now without breaking down and crying is because I'm doing the work. I'm still doing it. Still hurts. Sometimes I wake up crying. I woke up crying like 2 days ago, actually, and I'm not afraid of saying that anymore. You know, I cry, I let it out, and then I process. And I think as men, we need to learn to do that, and not only men and women, with life being so crazy, just being able to dive in. And so the key is surrounding yourself around people that are allowing you to have that and do that and continue to do that. Like, I break down and I talk to my wife, or I talk to a family member, my mother, or my siblings that have been there through me, and we're all going through it. And my mom is a real, like, she the toughest person I know. I got on the phone with her today, and she's just been, you know, killing it, like trying to really get through it on a whole nother level. She showed that, you really don't know how strong somebody is until something goes down. And she's really showing her stripes, and it's kind of admirable and inspiring to kind of like keep going and pushing. And, deep down inside, my father would always want me to be, but we always talked about that. Every generation is supposed to be better than the last. My father always pushed me to be better than him, and he always used to tell me that. So I got to take this to another level. So when I talk about these restorative practices and everything, I'm doing this work for my father. I'm doing this work for my next generation. It's much bigger than me. So in June, after this past year at KIP, I quit my job and I started my own business, as I articulated earlier, Translating Success LLC. I'm a business owner now, and I'm running a consultant and speaking business to kind of, implement what I've learned from the process in more areas around the country to save lives, essentially, and leave my mark in honor of my father.
Man, that's what's up, man.
Thank you.
Um, and man, I know you mentioned how when you were at Kip Houston,
Yeah,
how you were teaching, but you also taught them how to teach.
yeah,
You taught them
yeah,
how to teach what they learned to others, so it could spread, all over the school and the community.
absolutely.
So we all can get the help that we need. My question that I was thinking about is, I know like you work with a lot of kids who had a lot of trauma. I mean, even at Yes Prep, when
Yeah,
before we start, before you start heavily involved, I mean,
hmm,
there's certain kids that just opened up to you, certain kids that opened up to me
yeah,
when we were
yeah,
there, and you can tell like it's a lot going on in these kids' lives, a lot more nowadays than when we were growing up.
yeah,
They're like kids today are dealing with a lot tougher issues than adults are dealing with now, a lot. Having going through the experience that you went through personally,
yeah,
and working with students who may have been through some same
yeah,
life
yeah,
trauma, do you see a lot of differences in how like trauma affects kids versus adults?
yeah. Absolutely.
It's a lot of similarities.
Hmm.
How can speak on a little bit about how if you were able to relate more to those who had the trauma after yours happened versus
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been speaking for 5 to 6 years. Well, professionally,
hmm
when I started my branding and all that, 5 years when I moved to Texas, 4 years ago. Man, twisted. So 4 years I've been speaking since college, but I actually started uh, building my brand and speaking as a business for 5 years, and then I just got my business name and ownership this year. But the main the main thing with like speaking, when you're going out there, you have a purpose and you want to inflict change and impact in people and trying to connect, but you get into this place of being able to really connect with people, and that's a process, learning how to do so. And this experience with my father, with him committing suicide, and I went through it. I'm going through it. Like I feel depression. I don't want to get up in the mornings. I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to talk to people sometimes. Sometimes I just want to go in a corner and boil up. And I never really felt that before. I had a lot of traumatic things happen in my life, but this is the most. Like I used to just use laughter to get through it, or like sports to get through my stuff. I seen a bunch of stuff in my neighborhood growing up. I've seen people murdered. I've seen arguments. I've seen, I actually moved from Brooklyn. We lived in Brooklyn. And I remember the day after the decision that was made when we moved to Long Island was I was playing in the playground and this guy was running super fast and three guys was running behind him with ski masks on, and the dude stopped and they shot him like 10 times in the head. I was right there. And I remember I was like, what, like 9 or 10? And then I just ran home, and my mom was screaming and all that, and then that was it. And my father used to get in fights and pick up basketball and all that. And my mom really liked that either, but that was it right there when the whole thing went down. Um, and then we moved out to Long Island, and so but it was so normalized, I mean, that type of stuff was normalized, right? But this kind of like really struck me in a whole different way. Like I'm saying, I was close to my father, and what I mean, for that to happen, you know, it took a lot to kind of process. Still taking a lot to process. So it's building empathy more than anything. So I empathize when I speak, and like you said, like the trauma that happens with kids is different than adults in the way we take it. That's what happened to my father. If my father was able to build the skills and build awareness of ways of being able to deal with his trauma better when he was younger, he probably would have had different things in his arsenal to go to instead of doing what he did, right? To escape and feeling like there was no way out. So I think it's a buildup. We start as young, so the sooner we get exposed to um, restorative practices and dealing with conflict and addressing trauma and being okay with crying and being vulnerable, the, 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 the quicker we get the skills to be able to be better men and women as we get older. So I think it connects deeply, and for me personally, it gives me a different perspective on everything now. When I go in rooms, I'm not, you know, I see the pain in people's eyes. It may not be the same, but I know what it is to not want to wake up no more. I know what it is to just be so confused about what's the point of everything now, and I know pain on a whole nother level. You know what I mean? So it kind of, when I'm speaking, I'm really like trying to connect and trying to, and it's kind of like I see the person in the room now, right? Before I was so focused on speaking and getting my message. Now it's just like I see you, you know what I mean? Because I'm there with you. So it's more of like, you know, trying to get to this place of like really trying to help people on a whole nother level. Um, and when I do speaking engagements, I go. There's a big thing that I do. I go the whole. It's a whole day event for me. If I speak at like 12, I'm being there at 7:45 when kids get to school, so I get a vibe of the school and I get a feel of kids and interact with kids before I speak, and then I stay and I connect with kids after. So, and now with what has happened, it's making me more even continuing to want to do that with a bigger purpose. Like I said, it's no longer about me. It's bigger than me now. You know what I mean? My father's living through me, and this message needs to be heard because I don't want that to happen to anybody else. And it's something that's developed over years of just adding responsibility on top of response. The older you get, the more responsibilities you have to deal with. So it seems like we deal with it differently because we're just covering up. We just have more stuff to cover up our trauma. When you're a kid, you're so exposed to the trauma and it's so near and dear to you. So it's easy to fall out with a teacher after you just seen some bull at home or outside of school, right? So it's easy. It's right there. It just happened. So it's so close, and you haven't developed those skills yet, right? You're so exposed. So what do you go to? Anger, covering up. Like, yo, I ain't weak. Yo, like don't say nothing to me. Like, you develop this exterior, right? Where in essence you just want clarity. You know what I mean? You just want peace. You just want things not to be the way they are. But we're not being exposed to that as soon in most of these communities that I've been working in and I grew up in, right? So I think it's my duty to kind of like give that. And that's a big reason why I started my business, to kind of like implement more. So like what I do is I speak, right? But with this program and curriculum that I built, it's not that I speak one time and you ain't gonna see me no more. It's like I speak and then I'm giving you the tools and I'm giving you the resources and I'm trying to build a partnership with the schools where it's constantly going, where I'm coming repeatedly to like check up and follow up on how the lessons are going, how the program is going. Are you seeing change? Are you seeing influence happen with the work that you're doing? And then me being the benefit of me being a teacher, I built the curriculum with lesson plans, thinking as a teacher, word for word, like where you can just follow and it's simple and then explain, and then you can have a binder for students and I have a binder for teachers to follow, and it's easy to get through. And I thought about it on a whole nother level. There's so many people that talk about the work but they haven't been in the trenches, right? They talk about how it can make change, but I was actually doing it and I was teaching. I'm saying not all, but some people have done it. But the unique thing with me and my experience, I put so much time into it because I really want this to be used. And I seen the impact that I had with my students that graduated and some are seniors right now at Cape High School, where it really like yeah, you saw the change in them, like their perspective, the way they're going off to college, the way they're going into the world and dealing with situations at home, right? And then being able to have those skills and move on life with that much sooner than they would have had to figure it out later on through going to therapy and this and that, which therapy is great. And I think is I recommend it to everybody that's dealing with stuff, but something like this that's implemented in school within those hours that you're all day in school. Most of your time spent is within those buildings called school, right? So like if you can implement that into schools right now, it'd be much easier when they're outside of school and when they're starting their lives past school, right? And building their careers and having families and everything. And then all that is passed down. You know what I mean? The way I interact with my wife is what my daughter is going to think is normal, right? She's going to think that the way I interact with her mother is how all men should be treated. All men should treat their wives or significant other. So I take that very seriously, right? So, and that's how I think these kids with these skills, they build these skills with the restorative power program, they can go off and influence their families and just be it like a little nephew or a cousin, witnessing them deal with conflict in a different way that they're used to. So I'm like, oh, I want to be like her. I want to be like him, right? And that's bigger than anything else because I grew up in a house and a family that not necessarily knew how to deal with conflict. Well, it's either you held it in and just accepted it, or and then until you blew up, right, with this anger that you were just holding in, or you just didn't know how to articulate in the moment, and then it becomes a huge argument, right? So breaking that cycle is what this whole thing is about. So I think it starts from young, and then it builds. So it's not necessarily a difference in how kids deal with trauma than adults deal with trauma. I think it's just a buildup. They're exposed to it sooner, so they have less to cover it up. Versus an adult that has so much layers to cover up and act like everything's so normal when stuff is messed up, and they just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like also like the experience of dealing with it.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
experience, like you can have more experience as a kid than an adult, depending on how
yeah,
your life has been.
yeah,
Right? Like you said, you've seen some things as a 9-year old that only adults have seen on TV.
exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So when it comes down to traumatic experience,
Yeah,
you at the age of 13, 14 may have kind of been desensitized to a lot of stuff that would make an adult be like, whoa.
exactly.
Now,
Yeah,
on the flip side, like you said, kids don't have too many layers to cover it up. Well, some adults have seen things since they were kids and now they're
yeah,
adults.
yeah,
So when things happen to them as the adults, they kind of know how to keep things going.
yeah,
Number one, because they have to,
yeah.
right? Because you're responsible
That's
now.
what happened
You
to my
know, you don't
father.
have a you
Yeah.
don't have a parent to, you know what I mean, to catch you when you fall as an adult.
Yeah.
So therefore, you have to learn how to do that, which reminds me of a topic that I had on a previous episode, where I think I was talking to Big Sarge about it, and we were talking about how nowadays it's what we are learning how important it is for what mental health and men,
Yeah.
and people, period. But like you were alluding to before, men don't deal with it because you've got responsibilities and
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
It's also in a way hypocritical, in my opinion,
yeah,
to have men grow up to be the protector, provider, and even when I was talking to a big sergeant, we were using military, right? You're training these guys to be on the front line.
yeah,
The guy on the front line that's fighting shouldn't be thinking about his emotions.
yeah, yeah,
You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
So the guy who's protecting his family ain't thinking about the trauma,
yeah,
and you can't sometimes, right? Like, because you
yeah.
have to be locked in.
Responsible for everything else.
You can even take it to sports, right? Like
Yeah,
you in the
yeah.
zone, you locked in.
Yeah.
You ain't thinking about anything that's
It's
going
an
on
escape.
outside that basketball,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So if you've been conditioned to feel that, conditioned to put those things that would, I guess, clog up your mind
Yeah.
during the time that you actually need to be focused. You've been so conditioned on being able to put those things out,
Yeah,
and now
yeah,
we're
yeah.
asking you to start identifying them,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's kind of hard. Well, it is hard
Yeah.
for guys to say, "Hey, man, I've been told all this time that
Yeah.
this is how I need to be, and this is what's going to be successful, and this is, you know, what I need to do to survive, or how I need to be to survive."
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, well, we now learning that it's actually important to be able to identify with your feelings, and you know,
The crazy thing is that all our lives as men, we build an armor. We're building our armors, we're building our shields to protect ourselves, right? And as the older we get, we feel like that's all of that is bull. Like you start to realize like all that was covering up what I should have done in the beginning. Like dealing with certain things that I should have addressed from like having this conversation that I should have just said how I really felt instead of leaving it alone and then it building into something greater that I didn't even need to get there. Just because I should have just dealt with the conflict. My wife said this a lot, and big ups to my wife, one of the smartest people I know, and
shout
keeps
out
me on my,
Melissa, man.
yes, Melissa keeps me on my toes constantly, and she says all the time, 5 minutes of discomfort is way better than 5 years of discomfort, right? Because you just hiding and you just acting like you're cool with the person when you just had this quick issue you could have just addressed right there. And if they like it or not, you just move to the way it happens in that moment. It gives you more clarity. At least you know, okay, I can't rock with this person. She doesn't take constructive feedback well. She doesn't. She took it the wrong way, and then that's a different conversation. Or it could just end right there. But and then we end up not doing that, and then just letting it build. And then something bigger happens, and then it's just an addition of what was so small back then. Now it's a big thing because it's added to like other stuff that the person was just adding on to their mind, like oh, and then they blow up. So you know what I mean. And then all this with restorative justice, which I didn't mention either, is a prevention of the school to prison pipeline, where it leads to kids going to prison. And dealing with discipline within schools where they're being policed and being conditioned to how to deal with authority, right? And not being able to have the skills to articulate yourself and get to the root cause of it and identifying yourself first can cause you to be in more stuff that you shouldn't have to be in. In the black and brown communities, it's evident that that is a problem. So
Can you speak on that school to prison pipeline? Like, what does it mean?
So, school to prison pipeline is what leads kids to basically start in school, end up going through the system, and end up being conditioned, and then end up going to prison. For example, black and brown kids make up, I think, about statistics may have changed a little bit, but when I checked, the last was 70% of the public school population. Yet in school arrest is no, I'm sorry. The black and brown students make up 30% of the population in public schools, right? 30%, right? But yet 70% of in school arrests are black and brown students. That's ridiculous, right? That don't even make any sense, right? And it comes from obviously support in the household, but also training and exposure to how to deal with conflict or how to deal with situations that you're put in. And then this leads into how you deal with security guards in school, how you deal with teachers, how you deal with principals, leads to how you're going to deal with cops, right?
Authority figures in
Authority
general.
figures in general, how to deal with that stuff. And we're not exposed to that, right? So restorative justice, not only am I trying to build these skills, I'm trying to prevent something bigger, right? Because we getting incarcerated. Like I have family members that are incarcerated right now, right? And I have family members that died from situations, right? Because of what I'm talking about. So I think it's a big thing with these restorative practices being implemented into schools. And actually, restorative justice started in the jail system, being able to essentially get to a place where you can have a conversation with the person who did the harm and who was harmed, right? So that's where it started. But now I'm looking at it's starting to get more popular within schools, and I'm trying to take it to another level. Like this is a needed thing. Like the fact that I was a restorative justice coordinator within a school is not a normal thing in most schools. There's no funding for it, right? I was fortunate to have that, and I was behind the doors seeing all the stuff, right? And noticing like, damn, like this isn't really valued like that. They're trying to push these restorative practices on teachers and deans and administrators when they have so much other stuff they got to focus on. And then just to add this restorative practice stuff, it's like unrealistic to actually do it purposefully for the kids, right? So the benefit with my program, I've developed it where teachers, and it's aligned to ELA TEKS and standards, so they can get the stuff that will help them in their big STAR tests and those big exams they got to take. So it's aligned with all of that, and teachers can implement it once a month, once every 2 weeks. One of the lesson plans that I have in the binder, and just keep going like that and implement it within time. And it just takes that much of a difference building it within the kids, and it's bigger than just getting a kid to listen to you in class. And once again, I was a teacher, right? So I had to learn that like you have to give respect to get respect, right? So, and a lot of teachers don't get the proper training. Unfortunately, there's a lot of young people that just go into it, and then they go to school and they get the training, they get the license, but they don't have the life experiences to be about that life. Like, get that type of respect when you get into a room. Walk into spaces where you just demand respect just as an individual, not as a teacher, but as an individual in your own walk of life. Like, if you haven't developed that skill, you can't just think that you're just going to walk into a class of high school students and it's just going to happen. Like, you have to develop that first. So I think that's the skill that's missing within the education system, like developing that, like that experience and confidence within yourself. Now that could be developed over years, but there needs to be some understanding of that, right? Some more clarity of that, right? Some people just say it's going to be rough, but like, what's going to be rough? What? And that's what the what is. Like, you need to know how to carry yourself as a person that demands respect. And the way you demand respect is by you carrying yourself, that you give respect constantly. You know what you're about. You're very direct. You don't care about being liked, because it's not about being liked. It's about doing the work properly with purpose. You're not going to be liked by everybody. So if you go in with that mentality, you're going to fail. You have to have a mentality of wanting to make change, right? And know yourself, know what you're about. There's not no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? Now there have been many teachers that have grown into that over time, but who hurts at the end of the day? The students they had at the beginning. I'm faulted for that. So I'm talking about the same thing. When I was starting out, I was young. I started teaching at 22. I had to learn it, right? And there has to be more training to it. And this is what the restorative power program, which I created through my business, Translating Success LLC, the curriculum will help you gain those skills as well as a teacher. And doing it with the kids, you'll be able to see different sides of kids, right? Now it's up to you to walk the walk after you leave that classroom, to walk in, to take it at home and try these practices. I try these things with my wife, right? I try it with my daughter, right? Being able to deal with conflict, right? I'm conditioned to think, like, growing up, if my daughter does something wrong, she got to get pow pow, right? But like, I'm doing this restorative work and I have to switch it up. I got to learn how to communicate differently, right?
Yeah.
I got to break it down to her and understand that she's 5. She's not giving me attitude. She's trying to articulate herself. She don't know how to right now, right? So that's a whole different thing. So like, when I say I walk the walk, like, I'm really taking these practices and like trying to become a better person all around using this work. And I see the benefit of it. I've become a better husband because of this work that I've been doing. I've become a better father because of this work that I'm doing. I've become a better brother, a better son. And I mean, it just all around, trying to get to this place of understanding where this is needed more than just a program. This should be implemented everywhere. And that's what I'm pushing for.
Man, that's what's up, man. Why don't you just let everybody know, like, how can they get the program? How can they get involved? More information? Where can they
Absolutely.
reach out to? And
Absolutely. So, with me, like I said, I was building my brand.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have a huge following. I'm on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and I have a huge following mostly on Instagram, and I'm at 15 K right now.
Shout
It's
out.
not that big, but it's getting there. I'm trying to get up to more info and more impact, more influence around the country and around the world. My Instagram is CJ Motivation. And my Twitter is CJ Motivation. Facebook and LinkedIn, my full name, Carlos J Malave. Don't forget the J. That's what differentiates me from all the Carlos. There's a bunch of Carloses. Growing up, like my dad and my mom used to call me from the park Carlos, and like 20 heads turn around. So it's a very common name. Just remember the C, the J in between Carlos Malave. Carlos J Malave is where you'll find me. You could Google me. My website, cjmotivation.com, is where you can find everything. So basically, um, you can on my website, I have a way of find like setting up a date for engagements, emailing me. You can go on my Instagram, DM me or email me, is linked on there, and just tell me you're interested in what I do, and then I'll send you some information and how we could work something out to make it happen, and bring it to your school. I could do speaking engagements for students, PDs for staff, admin, and teachers. I wrote a book, Translating Your Success, which is implemented in a couple campuses out here in Houston and in New York. So that's a part of the one of my options to add in. Also, my curriculum comes with lesson plans, unit plans, resources, and binders for staff and students to have, so it can run itself. So not only will it be something that you could just you can grow with, so within your classroom. And once again, it's aligned to ELA TEKS and ELA standards, works on public speaking. It has literature, articulating passages, and writing essays, and doing projects. I have one of my projects is called, I got this from my wife as well, the life maps. So you create a map of specific events that happen in your life, whether it was traumatic or happy, that made you who you are, and it's a therapeutic. And then you get the creativity to build the map however way you want. I had a kid draw a face with tears. On the right side was happy tears. On the left side was bad tears. Right. So I had another one draw, like, what was it? A map of. I'm going mind blank right now, but there's many creative stuff that kids came up with it, and you get to be an artist for a second and kind of put your trauma on paper, and then you present it to the class optionally, but you present it in the class. There's many ways. I have rubrics in the curriculum and show you how to do it. You can have kids grade each other without putting names on the boards. You just put in numbers, and then you get the rubrics in, and they grade each other, and they see other people's pain, and you're like, oh my God, I'm not the only one. And that's the biggest thing with schools. People feel like they're alone, especially at a very young age. Like, I'm the only one going through pain, and I'm the only one covering it. Yet they're walking around and sitting around people, or everybody's covering and wearing a mask. And this kind of class kind of takes down the mask, in a way where not people aren't singled out, but you're able to have this space where you can build, confidentiality and comfortable space, and safety, basically.
Yeah.
So yes, I would love. I'm working with a couple deals in Houston right now, a couple public schools and charter schools, and then I got a couple in New York as well, and it's starting to grow. So you can follow me anywhere. You can reach me very easily. If anything you forget, just Google me, Carlos J Malave, or CJ Motivation. Everything will pop up, and you can't miss me. I have the same picture. I know we on tape, so same picture everywhere. That's on my book. The big bald-headed smiling dude. You know what I mean? He's on everything. This is my Instagram photo. This is my Facebook photo, LinkedIn photo. There's the link. There's a picture that'll pop up on Google, so you can find me all over. So I try to keep it simple and easy to access. So and also with my book, the way I got into the book, if you don't mind me talking about it. So with the book, it's very meaningful to me. I wrote this in 2017, and we were working at Yes Prep. I was real grinding, real
I
hustling. So
remember.
yeah, so
I
I was
remember. I was reading something when you was
yeah,
finishing.
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was remember you were sending me chapters.
So me and D were working at the same place. And for all my real hustlers out there, like it's possible, man. I hated reading growing up, and I talk about it in the book. My mom is an educator, and my mom pushed books on me to the point where I faked reading. And you know, what I mean, the first book I ever read was The Alchemist in college, and the point of it was short, it was entertaining, and I finished it, and it just gave me this sense of like, damn, I could read a book, like the first time I could say that. And I wrote a book with that premise. The book is 100 pages long. Every chapter is 4 to 5 pages, to the point, emotional, entertaining, funny. I talk about all aspects of life and how to translate your success. I'm the example. And at the end of each chapter, I put reflection questions about your own situation. So I'll be the example, and then I ask you what's going on with you. Like, who do you need to talk to? What questions you need to ask? So it's not only a book; it's a journal for you to figure out your own stuff, and it could be a resource that you use. So this is implemented into my curriculum, and it's implemented into a couple schools already using it for freshman seminar or programs that they got within the school to introduce the practice. So that's something it's on Amazon. It's doing pretty well. It's 33 5-star reviews.
Nice.
So moving on little by little, but it is doing pretty well. Very easy to access. Once again, if you type my name into Google, this is one of the stuff that will pop up, my book. So and I'm in the process of writing my second book right now.
Mm.
I'm trying to make that a bestseller.
Congrats,
So
congrats.
thank you. And that one's gonna be big for me. I'm gonna do something special and talk about a lot of stuff that I was talking about earlier with this restorative work, and you know, something big in store for y'all. So continue to follow me for those who have followed me before, and for my new followers. Uh, I'm excited to meet you and get to know you. Yes, I answer back and I do follow.
Hmm.
I'm one of those guys that's fully engaged, and I'm willing to make real impact. So it's bigger than me. It's bigger than what I've done in the past, and I'm really here with you guys and trying to make a difference on another level.
Man, so I'm gonna switch gears real quick.
Yeah,
Uh, New York,
yeah.
Brooklyn.
Hometown.
So I gotta ask,
Yeah, what's up?
what's your thoughts on your
Hove.
boy Hove
Hove.
and this
Yes,
NFL
yes.
thing, man? What's going on?
Yeah, so honestly, there's been a lot of conversation about it. But I do believe there's several people that have said this. A couple celebrities spoke up about it. But my take on it, I think there's different ways to look at it, right? I You have to look at the character of a person, right? So what they've done thus far. And I think what happened in Cap's situation, I think um, he took the right stance and he took the right moves to do what he had, and it was necessary for him to do that. And Jay Z Hove is taking his stance. It's different than people may imagine. It's a different route, but we got to see it through, see what happens from here. Um, and you can't put no judgment on it right now. I know it's easy to put judgment on it and hear people's opinions on it, but we really don't know what's the real mindset behind him signing the deal with the NFL. I could be wrong. It could be about money and status, but for me personally, I don't think that's the premise. He has enough of that.
Yeah, I
And
would say that too.
and to put himself in this situation just shows me that he doesn't care about what people say. He's never been one to care about what people say. So, what I mean, to do this is making a bigger statement. So just waiting to see if real impact will come from this. Cap did his thing, made huge impact, and the reason why this was possible was because of Cap.
That's true.
Now, if Jay is able to make impact from within and actually, make changes, it might not be how everybody wanted it to go down particularly, but that would be the goal. to make change and bring awareness, and whatever the NFL's purpose for doing this or their take on it. I mean, we have to start somewhere and do something different. We've been people who have been doing stuff not only in this situation and in a lot of different situations from the outside, getting people on the inside and see what happens. Now, once again, I'm not picking sides. I'm not saying who's wrong or right. I'm just saying personally, I just want to see what happens. You know what I mean? Then I'll be the first one to tell you that I was that he was wrong if things don't turn out, or he was right. So let's just see what happens. For me, um, I think it's bigger than that. We just can't see it now. From Hove's, moves. So we'll see what happens, and everybody has their feelings about the NFL and how they've carried themselves the last couple years, rightfully so. There was a lot of stuff that was not right, and it looks sketchy to bring in a celebrity of status, of color, to try to kind of fix the issue. I get all of that.
Like a Band-Aid on it. Huh?
Yeah, I understand that, but we just got to see how it. Like for me, I think Hove is strategic, and I mean, I think there's a plan behind it. I personally think so. I could be wrong, but I'm waiting to see what happens. So that's my take on everything. So yeah, everybody has their feelings. I think we just need to hold off and not X out either side. You know what I mean? It was necessary for Cap to do what he did, and we have to see if it's necessary to see if it was necessary for Hope to do what he's doing now. So, yeah.
That's what's up, man.
And another thing too, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I have the privilege to look the way. I know there's privilege in me looking the way that I look. I can talk a certain way, I can dress a certain way, and not be seen or judged a certain way, right? So I have the privilege to look the way I look and all that. But this is what I would say. I'm Puerto Rican, and my people come in all different shades. I have family members my brother's much darker. My grandma looks black until she opens her mouth, right? Well, she is black, and then she speaks Spanish, right? So I think the biggest thing in my position is to bring awareness. If we getting pissed off about what's happening in my country of Puerto Rico, we have to get just as pissed off with these issues that we see in this country if we're here, right? We can't be getting mad of what's happened about the kids which is a horrible thing, being locked up in cages, and then look at Tamar Rice and not feel the same type of pain. I think we have to look at both sides, because I've seen many black people step up for the Hispanic community when things go wrong, but not all the time you see, and I'm not talking about everybody, but you don't see a lot of Latinos step up when it's the other way around, right? When the Black Lives Matter, people like to separate themselves, and I think that's wrong. I think we need to be just as upset, and we need to stand, right, all together. So I think that's a narrative. That's a whole nother topic, but I think that's a narrative that needs to be pushed. And from my position, I think I need to take that stance as well. I know there's privilege in the way that I look, but where I'm at now and what I've seen throughout my life, it's something that needs to be called out. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
All right, man. Before we wrap up, every time I have a guest on here, I ask them a question, put them on a hot seat a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be interesting.
What's that?
I'm
nervous, man. What is this?
It's a scenario.
Yeah.
You all alone. You're on an island.
Yeah.
And you can possess the catalog of 5 artists.
Okay.
Which is features, albums, whatever.
Okay.
Who would your 5 artists be if they were the only 5 people that you can take with you? Well, music-wise.
Music-wise?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay,
Well, you
okay.
would take them. You would take their music with you.
All right, all right, all
Yeah.
right, all right.
So
You
so
put me on
so
the spot.
what's your top five
Not
artists in any genre? Just your top five that
okay,
you can
okay,
listen to for the
okay.
rest of your
Yeah,
life.
yeah. Hold on. You put me on the spot right now. You put
Yeah.
me on the spot. All right. If I was stranded on the island for how long?
For the rest of your life,
For
son.
the rest of my
Yeah,
life?
you don't get no options.
Damn. And the catalog, it has to be an extensive catalog, man.
Oh, hey, that's up to you.
Um, I would say, and I want a mix, so
Okay.
I might surprise some people with
All
this,
right.
but not with the first one, obviously. Hove would be one
All
for
right.
sure. Got to get Hove on there. And for the whole thing with, and I'll explain each one. The whole thing with Hove, the growth, and you know what I mean. There was stages to his music, so you can always go back and hear, the growth within his levels, and that's what I'm about. I'm all about growth. So I want to be able to look back on my career and everything that I've done and say, yo, I remember when I was like that, but this is where I grew, and that's where I grew, and that, you know what I mean. There was change, evolution. So Hove for sure. So that should last me a long time with his
Mm-hmm.
catalog. So I would say, um, whoo, that is tough right now. All right, all right, all right. I'm also a big R&B fan, so a huge old school. Um, so my wife got me into a lot of it, and a lot of the songs that just bring back good memories would be Tony, Tony, Tony.
Well,
All right. So that's me and my it's our anniversary.
look at
So
you.
you know what I mean.
So
So
they hold Tony's
yeah,
all
yeah. My
okay.
wife put me on that, so
All right.
I ain't trying to say like that was all me. My
All
wife put me
right.
on that.
Hove,
Um,
Tony.
Tony, Tony, Tony. Uh, Now there's another thing I got from my wife. My wife is from Trinidad and Tobago, so big ups. Love the country, visited several times. Love the people. The beautiful thing out there is like you see white people, Indian people, you see Chinese people, you see let me not say Chinese, you see Asian people.
Mm-hmm.
I know there were Chinese that I met, but just saying Asian, just to put it out there like that. And they all have the same accent. They all say, "I'm Trini." I was
Mm-hmm.
like, man, they call New York a melting pot. That's a
Yeah.
melting pot. So that was very interesting. So, and the music is just so joyful and so like put you in a good mood. All the music is like, so I would say Marshall Montana, right? So soca music, if for those that don't know, upbeat, high energy, good feeling music to change the mood. So you got the hip hop, you got with Hove, you got the R&B, slow it down, Tony, Tony, Tony. And then you got the the soca to get up. So I'm thinking about a lifetime. So I got to get different vibes, right? So getting up, working out music, and just dancing and feel good music. Um, Also, I would put. um, I would put Tupac on there for sure. I
Okay.
listen to it. I still listen to Tupac. His music has been ageless, timeless. Let me put it like that. So, I mean, a lot of stuff that he touched on still is relevant today and very conscious. Uh, so that's four, right? So Tupac,
Mm-hmm.
Hove, Tupac, Marshall Montana, Tony, um, and I'm probably forgetting people, but
You're gonna get five, bro.
five. I know. I'm
Yes.
thinking about a lifetime, and I mean, I was a fan of I listened to his music before everything happened, so I want to make it look like I just riding on. I was listening to his music. I actually was listening to his album when he passed, Nipsey
Mm.
Hussle. So I was listening to his music, banging out to it in the workout, and being inspired by it. Then victory lap, and then I get home and my wife told me, "Damn, he just passed," and I'm like, "What?" And it was close to my father's death too, so
Yeah.
it was back to back, so that kind of hit me. But I was into his music beforehand, and I was already doing my research into Nipsey and who he was and catching up on his music and his interviews from the past and his wisdom he was passing. And it's just ironic that weekend before it happened on a Sunday, that weekend before I was watching all his videos, all his snippets of him just spitting knowledge and his conscious way of being. I was like, yo, this dude is dope. Why didn't I get on him earlier, right? And hearing his story, how he hustled and was an entrepreneur and all the businesses he created and all that. So catching up on his music before everything happened. Then when it happened, it's just like, damn. And then you see everybody blowing up and putting it even out there more, the impact he had. So I would definitely say Nipsey would be number 5. Just, life is a marathon. So if you're on that island, I'll be running a lot of marathons to stay alive, and the marathon will continue.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah.
All right, man. Appreciate you stopping by, man. It was good talking to you, and I know we got some future plans, and
for sure.
It's gonna be fun.
Oh, we gotta introduce it.
Dang, I forgot. We got
Yeah. This was the interview. But we you want me to do it? You want to do it?
Man, go ahead,
So
man.
this was the interview. Finally got on the show. Yo, he been trying to get me on this podcast for like years. So, and then he always tell me, yeah, Los, you got to get a podcast. You doing your thing on Instagram. You doing this and that. You getting big, but you won't get bigger. You get on a podcast. And it just came to a point when I just made my business Translating Success, and I started to go and really go into this work that I'm doing now. And I'm talking to D, and I'm just like, you know what? Why won't we just run a podcast together? You know what I mean? Since, we've been trying to get this done for a while. So, yes, we have agreed to do a podcast together. I think it's going to be Tuesdays.
Yeah, we can work out that schedule.
Okay, we'll work it out, but it'll be more consistent, and we'll be definitely trying to make this thing a real thing, and really make it a thing. We have a couple names, not gonna give it out just yet. So, but we have a couple ideas, and I think it'll be dope to change the narrative. And just have something different, unique, with 2 different perspectives. It'll be funny, it'll be entertaining, it'll be informative, it'll be powerful, impactful, and I'm down to make this happen. So I'm excited, man.
Man, yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun, man.
Yes, it will be.
It's gonna be fun. Especially
with your question. You had me scared with that last question. I thought you was gonna hit me with something crazy. You gave me that look in your eye.
But, that's when we start off stuff. I get crazy. Oh man, so yeah, man, it was cool coming out, man. Once again, thank you. I appreciate your time. And like I said, man, we got some stuff coming up that we're going to work together with. So
sure.
We're going to definitely have a lot more time to be in front of the camera and get some of these issues tackled, man. So
For sure.
So, yeah, man, thank you for coming out, man. Thank everybody for tuning in.
Thank you, yo. Peace.
Ugh.